Okay, we're recording.
You ready?
Yep, we're recording.
Okay. I'm Rich Townsend, the chairman of the Town of New Canaan Utilities Commission. And tonight we're having a regular meeting of the Utilities Commission. It is now 7:02, and so we'll get started. Sven, would you mind calling the roll?
Not at all. We have 6 people. We have a quorum. Hiram Cantu. Here. Mike Collins.
Here.
Bernie Clark. Here. Sven England is here. Jill Gazzetti. Not here. Janae Hunter
I'm
online.
here. Yeah, I'm here by Zoom.
Krista Kennan.
Here.
Kareem Kerr. Not here. Rich Townsend.
Here.
That'll do it, sir.
Thank you. And we have a quorum.
Yes. 7 out of 9.
Okay, one of the things that I think got left off of the agenda when it got filed is reviewing the minutes from our meeting in September 26th. I circulated those yesterday just to be sure everybody had a copy. And if somebody would make a motion that we put that on the agenda to review the minutes, I think I have to add it to the agenda. This is a preliminary. This, I don't think.
I'll make the motion then. Add it to the agenda.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Janae.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so
Minutes.
are there any questions about the minutes?
None.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll do that too.
Oh, Sven, you're really being a great vice chairman here today. That's great. Okay, Mike, thank you very much. Okay, so
All
we'll,
in favor?
all in favor,
Aye.
unanimous.
Cool.
Kareem's calling.
Karim?
Because you have someone online, you have to call the roll. They have to vote.
Yeah,
So you
hang
could hear
hang
it.
on one second.
I approve.
Janae,
Janie
we see
Hunter.
you. Janae,
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Karim is on the phone. Karim, can you get on the Zoom or what's the deal?
It's still got a space age.
Can you send Karim a link?
Yes. Susie.
Okay. Okay, Bob's gonna send you the link. He's on it.
Yep. Going to his LinkedIn. I know.
I'll get you the.
You got another one?
It's most of the day.
The 26th, right?
Yeah, but I get Zoom invites and
Yeah.
do it. It's easier, especially if you're traveling.
Sorry about that. I think we're pleased here tonight for our first order of business to have on Alex and Andreas from UCLA that is going to take us through what they have to offer in terms of cell coverage measurements that may be, I think, very useful to us. So with no further ado,
do we want to do?
oh, do we have any public comments, Bob?
No.
Excellent.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Next.
Here we go.
You're okay? Okay. Okay, no.
Now we're.
Now we're on UCLA. Now we're on UCLA. So Alex and Andrea, take it away. Bob, will they be up on?
Rich, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yes.
We can.
Great. Fantastic. Well, super to be here. Really appreciate it. A quick introduction, Alex Waslu. I work for a company called UCLA, and I'll introduce our company to you all here today. We were invited to talk a little bit about how we've helped other areas, other governments with mobile and fixed network connectivity issues. Sounds like that's a fun and exciting topic for you all as it is around the nation, and hopefully we can help out. I work with a lot of the governments on the East Coast, about 25 state governments. We've got about 20 local county or city governments, as well as the FCC and the NTIA, and I manage those relationships. So really looking forward to this discussion, and I'll let my colleague Andrea introduce herself.
Good evening, everyone. Andrea Velasquez-Son, Technical Account Manager with Ookla, and formerly Broadband Development Coordinator with the State of Idaho Broadband Office. So I actually have the user side experience where we acquired Ookla's data and then used it. So definitely able to share both sides with you tonight. So glad to be here and be able to share what different services and products we have that may be able to help you guys solve the different use cases that you may have.
Terrific. Go ahead.
Super. Yeah. So we've got a brief agenda here, and sounds like a not too large a group. So I'm hoping there'll be some questions throughout. We'll do a brief introduction so you understand who we are and kind of what we do. I want to make sure we understand your requirements as well. So we'll talk a little bit about, Rich gave us a good download on those, but I want to make sure we understand them fully. We have a couple of different ways we can help, and I'll try to explain those different methodologies and different testing approaches. We'll talk a little bit about our project with Vermont, which we had completed a little while ago that may be very relevant here. And then we'll take a look at a couple of other test methodologies that include crowdsourced data we already have in-house for your city and Fairfield County that could provide maybe some insights right away. So does that sound like a good agenda?
Sounds great.
Okay, super. So just briefly, just to level set, I don't know if there's many of you that have heard of our company. Our company is called Ookla. In fact, many more people know our brand, which is Speedtest. Speedtest is an app that you may have on your mobile phone. You may have it on your computer at home. It's been around for several decades now. And as you can see, we were founded back in 2006. We're a Seattle-based company. And we've got a presence in many countries around the world. But this app called Speedtest is probably the way most people know us. It's the primary app or mechanism for an independent test of mobile or fixed network performance and availability, which is why
Lost him.
Oh, no.
Karim came on. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. We lost you for a minute. I think one of our colleagues, Karim, came on the screen, and I think you went away. But now I think you're back, Alex.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah. So anyway, I was just giving you some background on our business. We've certainly been around for a while, and I think, as I mentioned, most people know us through.
You just froze.
Mhm.
Needs better internet.
Yeah, he went off now.
They're both gone.
Yeah.
I'm
Sure.
here. I just took my video off just in case that may help. Are
Okay.
you there? Okay, I think we've got Alex back.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
we got Alex.
Alex, can you share your screen again? We're missing it.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
See. Sure.
Yep. There we go.
Let me do this. I'll turn my video off too, if that's helpful at all. I don't know. Can you guys still see my screen or no?
Yeah.
Bet.
Mm-hmm.
You can. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, I was just mentioning that this Speedtest app, which drives a lot of awareness for our business. It's an app that has more than 600 million installs around the world. We get 18 million tests. So people pressing the go button on that app every day. We can, in almost every case, tell where the person was when they took that test, who the provider was, whether it was a fixed test, so they're connected to Wi-Fi, for example, or they were connected to a mobile network, and a host of other metrics about the actual test that was taken. We have a massive server network around the world. As you see at the bottom of the screen to the left there, 16,000 servers, which is unique in this business because it means that when we actually when someone hits the go button, we look for a server that is near that person and where they're taking the test. We actually take a look at the 10 closest servers and we run a test that way. So it's an optimized way of running the test. We're not the only folks in this business. There are, Google has a test called MLab, and there are several others, but we're probably the most popular and certainly well known in the business. And through the years, we've also acquired various other businesses that specialize in network testing. The experience that I just went through, where you as a consumer can hit the go button, contributes to what we call a crowdsourced data set, right? So it's data from the crowd or consumers that are hitting the go button that contribute to this massive data set that we have. We also have tools and technologies that allow individuals, whether they be governments or telecom companies or anyone else who wants to go out and test networks in a more sophisticated and perhaps get more depth of information. So we have tools that can do that, and that's what the state of Vermont did as well. So we'll talk to you a little bit about that here in a minute. A bunch of other stats and facts and figures on our company here that I think I'll skip over for now, but we can certainly circle back to if there's questions. So just getting back to you all for 1 minute, I want to make sure that I'm properly understanding the situation, and Andrea and I are right on. My understanding is, and we've heard this plenty of times before, the wireless coverage maps that your service providers, your telecom service providers have provided you for your area are simply, wrong, or they seem to be overstated, and you're getting lots of drop calls or maybe even having trouble connecting at all by your citizens throughout New Canaan as well as Fairfield County. Is that right? Are there any other things that you're struggling with?
Well, that's the perception. What we're looking for is hard data, and that's why we're talking to you tonight.
I guess I would like to add, I don't know that it's as much we're worried about the veracity of the cell coverage maps by AT&T and Verizon, as much as we're trying to understand what areas of the town don't have coverage or need or have weak coverage. So I don't know that it's the veracity as much as it is understanding the coverage that we currently have.
Got it.
And also coverage during peak times when everyone's using their cell phone versus off-peak times.
And we're trying to get a base of what the coverage is across the town, and then we'd like to be able to project forward and understand what infrastructure we require in town to get it up to an acceptable level. And whether that may be towers or not towers or satellite or whatever the new technology may be, what would be appropriate for our topography and for our citizens' requirements.
And I think one of the thoughts we had was, as opposed to just looking at it for the town New Canaan, looking at it for the surrounding towns. So comparatively speaking to the other towns, how weak or strong is our service?
Good point. Any other input? So that's what
I
that's what
think,
we're looking for. And
yeah.
we're new at this game, you know, I mean, our utility council has just been, commission has just been started in June. So we've been put into the middle of this, so we're getting up to speed.
Okay. Well, that's great.
And
That's great feedback.
And I think if I may say also, you're in a unique position where you have tremendous observation on how the coverage is happening and over time, and the load and all this information that in general are pretty tricky to get.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Great. Well, that's helpful to know. And that actually does probably influence, you know, a little bit about the recommended approach that we may have for you. Because the different methodologies that we have for collecting information about the state of networks, they all are good for answering specific questions, right? There's no one approach that answers every question perfectly. As you might imagine, you know, when you go out and test networks and do a drive or walk test of a city or county or state, and you are simulating kind of consumer experiences, that takes time, right? And that also takes probably some additional budget versus crowdsourced data, which I referred to before. Again, that's the data generated through an app, or multiple apps through a phone or tablets or so on. That sort of data is available already today. So the timing is you know, it's available already, right? We can show you some of that data existing today, but because of the way in which those tests are taken, it's not going to have the depth of information on each test result that a drive or walk test would have. And that's one of the reasons that our client in Vermont decided to do a kind of a combination of the two. I'm going to come back to this slide and come back. Well, why don't I explain a little bit about this, just to kind of give you guys a little bit more background, and then we'll get into what we did with Vermont. So I showed you guys this speed test app, and that's one of the ways that we collect information. What we call consumer initiated tests. So that's when a consumer actually opens up their speed test app and hits a go button. We call that a consumer initiated test. So that's you know, and depending on whether you're out and about, you know, somewhere in your neighborhood in New Canaan downtown, walking around where you may not be on a Wi-Fi network, but you're connected to mobile, you're taking a consumer initiated mobile test in that case, whereas that same app can pick up Wi-Fi if you're at home or perhaps in a public building that has Wi-Fi, and then you're taking what we call a broadband speed test. But in both cases, a consumer actually has to hit the go button, and that initiates the test. We also have the ability to collect information off of citizens' phones off in the background. When they first download our speed test app, they are able to, or they get a prompt to ask a few questions if they're on an Android device. If they are on an Android device and they opt into the questions, then we're able to collect background measurements off their phone basically every 15 minutes or so. So we're able to collect a lot more information that way than relying on the consumer to hit the go button. These two different approaches populate different data sets that we have. One's called Speed Test Intelligence. We'll show you that. And then we'll also have this other data set called Cell Analytics, which I had mentioned to Rich, because it provides coverage information, kind of a heat map. Imagine a red, you know, yellow, green heat map of where all the problems and where all the really good coverage is in New Canaan and surrounding Fairfield County. So we'll show you what that looks like. But those are just different ways in which the data gets generated. And then our tool to do drive testing is called WIND. And that's wireless intelligence on demand. And it's essentially it requires a regular consumer device, and that's all. So you could use a regular Samsung phone, download this WIND app that we would provide to you all, and whether it's us testing or you hire someone to test, or some city or county employees do the testing, they basically can just turn on the device and it runs a sequence of tests that simulate a phone call, an actual voice call. They could do a text call. They could do a simulated kind of data download. All of those types of activities that we all do on our phone, this Ookla WIND app could simulate and test each of the networks that way. We basically procure one device for each network and then do a drive or walk test or both of the entire area that you're interested in doing, right? So again, that's going to result in a lot more information that's more in depth, and it's going to be information that our telecom clients are very familiar with because most of them use this. Their telecom engineers actually use this in the field to do their own testing, kind of an independent view of their own networks and their competitors' networks.
So they use your software, WIND?
Yes, they do.
So
Indeed.
this is it's not a consumer initiative, but it's also a test initiated in the field. Are other drive-by tests done that are using a different technology where it's a receiver saying what the power is that's available at that site, or is everything coming into or out of a phone type of device?
It's a good question. All of our tools and tool sets are they conduct tests the way I just described. So we have from a device outgoing to but so the way we'd set this up is we'd actually have two phones for Verizon, two for AT&T, and two for T-Mobile in different test kits. They would call each other, they would text each other, so that to simulate a true kind of consumer, activity, right? And that's how the state of Vermont did it for their test as well.
Okay.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I've talked to you about the two different approaches here, and we've started to talk about the positives or the reasons why you might do both of them. Let me talk to you a little bit about what the state of Vermont did, because that's probably the most relevant case study that we have, that's both not too far from you and very similar situation. So the state of Vermont put out an RFP in the beginning of 2022. They had a public service department and an individual in the public service department who had, as you see on my screen here, who had actually done his own drive test back in, I think it was late 2019, of the state, because they were so frustrated with the poor coverage they had along major federal highways and state-funded roadways throughout the state. They also had, they also weren't having any luck with their telecom service providers. Basically, the service providers weren't really recognizing what they did as a test.
Mike, we lost you. We lost the
method.
slide again, and you're going in and out.
Can you reshare your screen again?
I mean, Alex.
Alex, are you still there?
Alerts.
No.
Anybody out there, Bob?
There's something.
It looks like he's still connected, but yeah, I'm not. Looks like he may be on mute.
That's Janae, right? Sorry. Can you see him, Janae?
Yeah, he's reconnecting, it looks like right now.
Still connected with us.
We'll give him a little bit here, and if he still has trouble connecting, I can always jump in and I can have him go over the Vermont use case at the very end. And I can jump in and kind of show you how we use all this data, how you can look at it and evaluate it and analyze it to be able to make informed decisions.
Oh, wait, I had a quick question, Andrea.
Yeah.
When we get the data, would it also include like the topography and like so would it be a 3D map that we get, or is it just a 2D map?
So it depends. There's two different platforms that we bring the data into that I'll show you. One is the Speed Test Intelligence portal, and one is our Cell Analytics portal. The Cell Analytics portal does have the ability to have a 3D rendering that comes down and brings the information into almost, well, it is like building layers that you can actually see and break it down as for buildings. Now the topography, I don't believe so, but let me double check that, because we do have different views in that in that portal. We tend to usually always look at the 2D because we're looking at, you know, coverage over, but you're going to want to assess if you've got issues and, you know, hills or trees or things that are coming in to those, you know, that coverage that's hindering that coverage. So yeah, definitely something that you can also bring into, you can add in layers into your map too. I think I'm
Can you
looking
guys
at
hear me?
how,
Here we go.
right there you are.
Geez, this is a great use case. And I'm just sitting in my home office.
It's
That's
the
okay.
evening and everybody's jumping on Netflix right
Yep.
now.
Could be.
But
It could
Andreas,
be.
Andreas finished it off, so we're going to be signing off. No, I'm kidding.
Right, exactly. That's perfect. That's just like it's like how I'd like to do these things. Wonderful. Well, let me just kind of summarize what we did for Vermont, because it combines a couple of different approaches here. They, as I think I mentioned, they issued the RFP in 2022. They were going to do just a drive test. We convinced them it may be a good idea to take a look at our crowdsourced data, which you see here in the bottom right, and we'll show you the demonstration of that data, that Cell Analytics data. As you can see, the different colors along the different roadways, red being bad, 1 bar, if you will, yellow, maybe 2 bars, blue being good. That's from crowdsourced data. So what we essentially did for them was we gave them the crowdsourced data for the state of Vermont, and that helped them inform where they needed to drive. They had already put together kind of a drive test route, but this kind of helped them point out some other bad areas of their state, and they then, you know, added those areas to their drive test route. Essentially, as I mentioned before, with this wind software, you load it on actual phones, like you see at the bottom left here, I guess, of that little picture. You load the wind software on, and then you basically have one phone for each provider, calling, texting, you know, running these tests. You're not actually doing this test, so anyone can. All they have to do is turn on the on button at the beginning of the day and off button at the end of the day, and that sort of thing. You can decide how you want to do the tests. You want an actual voice test to see if calls can be completed. You want to do text. You want to do download, upload, that sort of thing. It's definitely the most sophisticated way to do this if you want to truly, simulate consumer experience. So that's what Vermont wanted to do, and they did this kind of test sequence throughout the entire state. And then when they were done, they were able to create kind of very easy to understand maps, top right, where you see the red and the green, where that you can see the little tests that the various tests that were taken, the test sequences, and we basically just created a simple map for them that showed where certain criteria was met, was green. There's a couple of yellows in there, and then where that criteria wasn't met, that minimum criteria, and those were red. So we created these maps with them for their entire state, which they then started to share with these service providers. The service providers became engaged very quickly, and they're now working with those service providers. And the state was actually able to raise or secure some additional funding for potentially state-funded new infrastructure for wireless. They also had got the attention of the FCC chairwoman, Jessica Rosenworcel, and have been speaking with her about the actual tests, the testing and the test project that they did. So they attracted quite a bit of attention, and it's amazing how quickly the service providers are moving on this as well. So I certainly can put you in touch with the folks in Vermont if that's of interest. But the key takeaway here is they used a little bit of the crowdsourced data that I talked to you about at the beginning of this call in the bottom right there to inform their drive and walk test routes. And then they used the wind tool for doing the actual drive and walk tests.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
If the crowdsourced data comes as a result of either the Android phones walking around and blasting you data every 45 minutes, or any of the phones, I presume the Apple phones as well, if they get on your speed test, they come up and they're in the database as well. But did you worry at all about there not being enough Android phones in Vermont, or how many points you were picking up, or the Android market share versus the Apple market share? Just point number one. And did anybody what percentage of the Android folks actually click the box that says you can follow me every 45 minutes?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's every 15 minutes actually that we'll generally run it what we call a background scan. I don't know the answer to the last question, Rich, is what's the percentage, but we can take a look at the number of tests that we have, for Vermont, for Fairfield County, for New Canaan for the last year. And, it's kind of is what it is. It's generally going to be more tests than most, municipalities have on their own, because some folks try to do this on their own, right? We can, if it's of interest, we can actually make a speed test instance available for you. You can put it on the New Canaan website, and folks can take a test that way. The only issue with that, though, is that if they're at home, or you're not sure you're getting a mobile test, that in every case you'd be getting just anyone who hit that website that would take a test, right? So, but we'll show you what the number of tests we have for your area. And you can see if that's a good number. And I guess that's, it was more because these guys in Vermont wanted to inform potential future telecom infrastructure builds, that they opted for the more sophisticated drive and walk testing in addition to the crowdsourced data. And they just used the crowdsourced data to really inform their drive routes.
Okay, thanks. It just seems like once you've got the crowdsourced data, when you start doing the drive test data where you don't have crowdsourced data, you also don't have people buying phones apparently, because you're not getting the initial speed test when they sign on.
Yeah, or they're not taking the tests.
Or they're
right?
not
They're
taking
the test. Yeah, exactly.
Do these work
So-
on Apple as well? iPhones?
So speed test works on all kinds types of phones. If you hit the difference is the consumer initiated test, which I was describing before, where you hit the go button. That's a speed test. Those work on both phones. The background coverage scans where someone has to opt in, those only work on Android phones because those enable us to actually get sophisticated kind of telecom measurements like signal strength, which is RSRP, RSRQ, which is quality, SINAR, all kinds of other metrics that some of the telecom engineers would be very interested in.
Okay.
Okay.
I got interested, so I looked it up. The market share for Android phones in Fairfield County versus Apple phones is 42 versus 58%. So they're close to half, quite frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. and I mean, there's all kinds of demographics we could get into about the market share of those phones. I mean, it's very close to half and half around the world. And in fact, in many places outside the US, Android is more popular. It's more affordable, certainly. Generally, the Android phones are. So, yeah, 50-50 makes sense.
I got us caught in a mud hole here. So let's
yeah. Yeah. Let's go. Let's take a look at a demonstration of our crowdsourced solutions that helped inform Vermont's drive test, and also potentially could be valuable to you as a starting point. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let Andrea share her screen, because I think that she'll start us walking through that.
Okay, here, let me make sure.
You're up.
There we go.
Can you see my screen?
You bet.
Okay. All right, so what I'm excited to show you is this is how the data comes in. This is where you get to analyze and see how all of those test results actually populate and show up. And this is our speed test intelligence portal. So this is a consumer initiated results that Alex was just talking about. What I went ahead and did is zoomed into Fairfield County, looking at the county results. And we're able to see, you can slice and dice this many ways. So how I have the view of ability right now is just year to date. The county has over 26,000 tests, almost 27,000 tests that have been conducted in just the county itself. And what you're seeing here in the map is a scale based on the download speeds set at 25 below, unserved, 25 to 50, underserved, or I'm sorry, the 25 below. Anything that's under 100, 25 to 100 is unserved, and 100 is served. So if we zoom in just a little bit to your city, you can already kind of tell here what the colors that are populating. Now, these are aggregated by bins. If I zoom out a little bit more and I hover over here, you can see the test counts and then what the aggregated average test is for the download, and also the approximate longitude and latitude of these tests. So when you purchase our data, or the mobile data, not only do you get access to this, but you actually get access to all the raw data. So you can actually see the longitude and latitudes of every test that is taken. You can also break it down to platforms. So when you were asking, what's the difference between the iOS and the Android? You can actually look at and see the individual tests and the raw data and get those results and do that analysis. This is breaking up just on coverage of your area. If you're looking over here, you have all providers combined, broken down: T-Mobile, Verizon, and then AT&T. down here, you can slice and dice this, as I mentioned, by different ways. You can look at quarters, quarter over quarter. Maybe you decide to do one of those speed test customs and do a marketing effort to try to push speed test and maybe some areas that are not getting as many tests. You can start looking at months and even weeks, even down to days, and start seeing those tests automatically populate and look at that coverage. I'm going to come back up here. You can also filter and look at individual providers if you wanted to. You can compare those. As you can see down below, as I'm doing this filtering, I'm going to put these back all on. It creates some dashboards that automatically populate for you that give you that progression over time. Maybe there's some improvements, maybe there's some things that are starting to decrease. There's a lot of things that you can do in this platform that gives you at least a high level as to what coverage is being generated by those consumer initiated speed tests.
So
Any questions?
can you hear me? This is Rich.
Yeah.
When we're looking at the little box that you showed us, it shows 11 tests. What time period does that box represent?
So right now I have it set to year to date, but you can filter that by quarter, monthly. You can, it's however you'd like to filter it.
And how big is that box?
So if you look, it goes down to 100 by 100 meter bins.
Isn't it 10 by 10? I thought it's 10 by 10. So
10
100
by
meters.
10 is in the
Yeah.
cell, cell analytics, but 100 by
Oh.
100 meter bins in the speed test intelligence portal. So as you zoom out, they group together in bigger chunks. You can kind of see up here, if you can see this, I've zoomed out. So it's about at a 300 meter. And as I keep going out, those boxes populate to get to be a little bit bigger. Does
I
that make
have a
sense?
question. Yeah, I think it's very clear. If you zoom in, can you zoom in a little bit? So I think it's very precise, the square in terms of size, which is very good. But do I read it properly? The map, it's pretty sparse, right? The measurement
When you're
is not a
looking,
lot.
it depends. When you're looking at it down at this level, I mean, that's quite
Like for instance, let me
Yeah.
more specific. If I walk on East Avenue, there's not a lot of measurement.
for those tests. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So it all be in comparison when you're going to look at a bigger city, like let's move over here to Norwalk. Norwalk, is that how you say it? You're going to have a little
Yeah,
bit more.
no, okay.
Yeah.
No,
So-
I understand. It's just I think in my thinking, if you think it might be good to combine both type of tests, meaning the one to define, as you say, the specific route to make sure that we get data where they are missing.
Absolutely.
Versus, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yes.
there's 26,000 tests for Fairfield County, right, Andrea, for
Yeah.
the last, 26,000 tests. But as you say, that's not for just New Canaan. That's for the whole county. 26,000 tests for this year.
Can you tell how many tests have been initiated in New Canaan year to date?
Yes, I believe so. So if I go city, just city, there's two ways that's broken down, by the city and then also by the postal code. So I'm not sure if there's much of a difference there. Nope, it looks like it's about the same. So in the city proper, you're looking at about 532 year to date.
Thank you.
And for your geological footprint, that's not too bad.
what is the difference between the sample count and the test count?
So what the sample count is that we use a methodology for one test per user per aggregated time period. So it takes out super users. Maybe you've got someone who's really upset about their internet and they're taking a lot of speed tests. And so that user isn't inflating the median. So what we do is then we aggregate those by one user, one test count. So the total tests you have are 532. The sample count is more how many individual users, they got one vote per that time period.
And that's
Does that make sense?
yeah, and that's year to date.
Yes, this is year to date.
And what is the sample number?
244.
So make sure I understand, 244
200.
people ran the test, but,
Essentially, that's 244 individuals.
right. 244 individuals ran 532 tests, is that right?
Right.
And
Okay.
some could be mobile phones and some could be wireless at your house.
This is all just mobile. We do have a whole different fixed data set that would show in the Wi-Fi if you're connected to a Wi-Fi router.
Okay.
Did you have also the timestamp?
So we do have the timestamp in the raw data.
Okay.
You actually get every individual test that's taken. So in the raw data, you would have a lot more points because it's not aggregated to that one user. You know, like if I took 10 tests and, someone else took 1. In the raw data, you have 11 tests. You get to see every individual test that's taken. In this, you would actually see 2 because my 10 would be aggregated to my median. And that's just the Ookla methodology. And we use that as there's other things that we clean up. I'll say, like, if there was a test that didn't complete, or there's maybe some spoofing that is detected in a false test. We use our methodology to clean the data and make sure that you're getting the most, proper representation and accurate tests that populate into our data. But when you get the raw data, you get a clean version, but you get to see every test that's taken. So you could even evaluate even further down into that data set.
When we buy this data set, just so I understand, Alex, I think you told me we get 1 year back and we get 1 year forward.
That's correct.
Right. And so what we're seeing now is 9 months. So what we'd anticipate is a year back would be roughly another 25% bigger than this, right? So versus 25, it would be
Right.
280 or 290.
Right, exactly. And we could provide you more than that if you'd like. Because, but I guess the question would be whether we could get some information as to what's changed in the infrastructure since then, right? Because if it's changed dramatically, you're not going to want to go more than a year back or so, right?
Sure. No, you're right. This has got a lot of capability, but it's a little concerning that it doesn't have a few more points. I believe the stuff I
100% fair. Yeah.
The stuff I read in the Vermont test is they almost advertise to the Vermont citizens, please do speed tests.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And that's where that speed test custom comes into play. In Idaho, we did the same thing. So we were in kind of the same playing field. We were trying to find out answers. What's what and where is coverage and what type of coverage is there? And we had areas that didn't have a lot of tests. So what we did is we took the speed test custom and we did kind of marketing campaigns and partnered with city officials to really kind of push out in these areas to get people to take speed tests. And so then we started populating and getting more data in those areas that we didn't have it. So definitely something that you can do to really help drive those areas that you may not have any information on.
How successful were they?
It was very successful, but I will definitely say it's not nearly as successful as the data set that you automatically have. You just, because people are automatically taking those, or like Alex explained, it's generated off of the Android, doing that automatic test. A volume of data that you're getting in the full data set is just always going to be that much more. But it also just depends on the education level and how much, which marketing efforts and how you're going about it too.
Yeah. I mean, the one difference is, as I think about it, you all probably know your local media channels pretty well. And you're talking about, I believe you said, Rich, a town of 20,000 or so
Correct.
people, right? So
Yeah.
you might surprise yourselves. You guys might be able to generate, I mean, we're talking about, not a ton of tests here. So, that may be one way to generate data is to start with that, and do that. That's
If we
certainly
if we did that though, I think what you said earlier was you couldn't parse cell phone tests from internet tests using a phone. Was that correct?
No, you can. You'll be able to tell mobile you'll be able to tell mobile tests that are taken on a mobile network. Yep.
Because quite frankly, most people in New Canaan think they're making a cell phone test when they're actually on their Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
Including
that's
myself. So,
right. Let us show you one more thing real quick, because I know that we're probably over time, but I know Andrea wanted to show you one more data set here, and this is from the background coverage scans that we had explained earlier. So this is going to be more dense data for your area.
So this is where I think things get really interesting. So you have the data set that is based on the consumer initiated, and then you have the background scans. Now, using them together gives you a lot more visibility. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to select, I'm going to start off with T-Mobile, and I'm going to pull up the performance, the RSRP, sorry, the power. And I'm going to we're going to view gradient first. This tells you the range. So anything that is, lower than negative 110, obviously is not good. Anything that is negative 85 and greater is going to be good. So as we're looking at this, obviously automatically for T-Mobile, the coverage, we're not looking so great. I'm going to go ahead and take Verizon. On top of that, we've got some areas that may be a little bit better. And then also we have AT&T. Same thing. I'd probably say it's somewhere in the middle. I'm going to go ahead and put all three up on to give you kind of a bigger picture. This is our heat maps. I'm going to bin these. And so what this does is take these down to 10 by 10 meter bins. So you can get pretty granular here. And I want to just make sure that I'm still in the right area. Am I still in the right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So you can definitely see like how on roads and things like that, you're getting a lot more coverage because of those scans. The blue is good, red, orange, yellow, not so great. So you can definitely get pretty detailed down here into the bins to see what those coverages are. You can even add in the speed tests that were done by the consumer initiated tests on top of that. I'm going to zoom in here. I know it's a little bit harder to see with them stacked on top of each other, but if I take this back out to a gradient, see how you can see the speed tests on top of the background scan coverage data. So you definitely can add the two and layer these two on top of each other. Another, I'm going to take this off real quick. Another great thing about this is you can actually load in the cell sites. And you can see the different approximations of cell towers or antennas based on the speed tests.
And this is one of your major problems, right? I mean, you guys can look at that right away. There's just not enough towers. I'm sure that's not new information for you all, but
I'm going to take it down to T-Mobile just to have it be a little bit more granular. But another source that we have is our tower source data. And this is based off of our assets and our information that we have that actually provide the locations. Oh, sorry. Trying to zoom out here so we can see few. So when we're looking at actual physical towers, sorry guys, give me just a second. Let me come out here. We have one over here. We have one way down here. The building ones, these are antennas. So these are what look like rooftop antennas that may be added on, that T-Mobile has an asset that is co-located on a rooftop or building there. So that's how you can kind of tell what's in that area. This is the one that Janae, you had asked about, the 3D.
Yeah.
Have different views that you can look at while you're doing this. But I think what you're maybe wanting is more the elevation, like a shape file that you can add in and maybe approximate elevation based on where the tower is and find in that. So you can definitely add those in. You can add that shape file in. One thing that I think you can get pretty granular, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit more to city, and I'm going to populate our 3D. And this, you can get down to even just what the coverage is for buildings. If you're looking over here, you can even see the different floors, what difference that is getting. You can see over here kind of what the different buildings are getting as well.
The colored buildings are a source of the speed test or whatever.
The coverage, yes.
Okay,
So-
so ones
yeah.
that are gray, either when they did a speed test had no coverage, right? Or for some reason there is no data available in the gray buildings.
The gray buildings, I would say no data is available. Anything that is lower than the negative 110 would be colored red if a speed test had been initiated or coverage had been picked up.
Can you switch to 5G instead of LTE?
Yeah, I definitely can. Let's take that off here and let's switch over to 5G. And I don't think the 5G has, or it's just taking a while to populate. That's probably why I clicked off a little bit too soon. So, oh, I'm sorry. I have a hot mouse. So going back here, this is your 5G coverage. Not nearly as great. Let's go back to the 3D view. It's going to take a little bit to probably populate. Let me move in here. Or if I'm not in far enough.
There we go. Just click on the antennas.
These are those are the tower assets, but for some reason I'm grayed out over here, which tells me that it's not populating. And I'm not quite sure why, because
And the cell site you picked LTE, not 5G, right?
Oh, thank you.
So there's nothing.
there you go.
Let me come back out just to make sure it's not populating something, but let's check. So it looks like we've got something up here. We've got something over here. And those are all three. But I mean, yeah,
And what about the building? The building where there's they are repeating the signal, or what was that?
These ones down here.
Yeah, the rooftop. What is that?
Those are that's an antenna, probably.
Yes.
So they have an antenna that's on the building. Not an actual tower, but there's probably an antenna that's co-located on a building. If I take this off and I look at, let's take just the power performance.
So that's mean like from the software, you only identify two towers that support 5G, right?
That's what it's looking like. Yes.
That's probably true. Okay, anybody got any more questions on this, on the interactive maps here?
No,
Just quickly, so this is only what actually occurs, so we can't do anything about the tower on Conus Ridge, the reservoir tower that's gonna go up. They can't simulate that, right?
That's a good question. Can you simulate on top of this a tower that's gonna go in?
You can, if you have a shape files or you have locations, you could add in a layer to add those onto your map. Yes, you can.
But we can't actually simulate how that it might impact coverage, right? I mean, I think that's what.
No,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that's let me
But
bring
once
that back. I don't think we can, but that's a great question. And yeah.
Some more questions that you guys have? Go ahead, sure.
Just one,
Sure.
in the examples for Idaho and maybe Vermont, the way it was used, this data was used to inform the drive-by test.
Right.
And you obviously have a very large area.
Right.
Again, I wasn't here at the last meeting, but my understanding of what occurred is that we have, the drive test is going to be pretty thorough.
Mhm.
Other than wanting to make sure that the data is, number one, just tested, or number two, where there's interesting areas, this data could be informed that. I was just sort of, if they have any thoughts about, it doesn't seem like this would inform the drive-by other than just sort of retesting select areas that we're concerned with, because we're going to pretty much drive by everywhere.
Right.
Is that my-
Our plan was to drive all, I think it's 110 or 120
Right.
miles of road,
Right.
of which, if you're looking at these maps, these cover probably, I don't know, 20 miles of road that have any decent coverage to them that you could tell.
Yeah.
I think of it as a step, step by step. You've got your high level, you've got your speed test intelligence information, and you take that in addition to this coverage, and you can start analyzing where you need more information. And
Mhm.
then if
Yes.
want to then do your drive test, then you get you get all of that. Right. So it's kind of different levels. You're starting off at your high and then you're drilling down. Definitely some place that you can start is looking at, okay, what is there right now? Where should we be focusing? Where is their coverage? And then, yeah, your drive test is just getting that much more detailed and that providing that much more information for you to make decisions off of.
and rather
Now
than
that would be with utilizing the wind platform, correct?
The drive test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
If we did it with them.
And the other thing about this is we get data points about the surrounding towns, get at least a sense of what their coverage
Right.
is going to look like. If we want to do a comparison.
Right.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And it turns out, as you'd expect, right? I mean, along the 95 corridor, there's a lot more green than there is when you move up 10 miles from the 95 corridor.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
So let me just ask a more general question, and that is, we've talked about now the crowdsourced tests, and I've looked up some crowdsourced tests on the internet. It appears you guys are one of the leaders in that. Is that true?
That's right. Yeah.
And who use, if you can share this, either what kind of people or specifically what people use your data in terms of cellular phone folks? Or two-way communications in general. Is there any insight you could give us to that?
Sure. You mean you mean like what companies use us?
Yeah.
Or your carriers.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
I can
carrier.
tell you that all three major providers are Ookla customers.
Okay, I know in 2016, you did a deal with T-Mobile, where T-Mobile is actually using yours specifically for their maps, I believe. At least they put press releases out like that.
Yeah.
Has anybody
Yeah.
else joined you like that?
Yeah, I'd have to, honestly, Rich, that's before my time here at Ookla. So I don't know exactly how they may be using us that's different from the other providers. we, there's a third, there's another methodology that I didn't even get into tonight that some of the major providers also purchase from us. And we do an ongoing drive test on our own. The wind technology and tool set would allow you all to dictate where the drive occurs. We actually do our own drive, right? But that's more for nationwide highways and states. That wouldn't serve your purpose, in my opinion, right? Because you're looking for roadways in a specific town, whereas these providers all buy this other drive test from us as well. But they all use wind. They're telecom engineering folks to optimize the networks, and they use what we call route metrics, which is our ongoing drive test. And there are crowd customers of Speed Test Intelligence as well.
I know that the FCC has this contest, and maybe it's over now, where you can test the maps of the individual providers against what the maps you have and force them to change. Has the FCC bought into your stuff?
No, the FCC is not. In fact, I was with the FCC last week. They have a couple of different requirements that they've asked us to change what we do. Amongst the things is they want us to ask people for their name and address when they're taking a test. Well, guess what? We're going to have few people taking tests if we ask for their name and address, right? So that they have that requirement, and that's why they've just tried to they've just contracted with a third party to try to create their own speed test app, the FCC. So they're gonna give it another shot. But I can tell you they spend a lot of money with us every year for our data as well. So I think it's going to take a while for them to collect enough tests to make their data set relevant.
Are there any other technology or data available that's just a different way to do it? And I'll suggest one, and that is, I can't imagine that Apple doesn't have a bunch of data associated that they would be able to sell if they decided to do it. That would imply where their phones are used, how often they're used, what technology they're used to communicate by. I mean, everybody that has a Find My Phone, Find My Computer,
Right.
click the box that says you can track me. And so I would be surprised if they'd sell it. I'd be surprised if it's not available. Do you have any knowledge of that? Or Google, the same thing?
Well, yes, Google has their own test called MLab, Measurement Lab. And so that is a slightly different way of measuring network performance. And I can send you a longer than you would like white paper describing the differences of the two tests and how they are. That would be what I would call our the other most noteworthy application for doing what we do is
it would be Google. Apple hasn't entered the fray, huh?
Not that I'm aware of. And I think part of that, Rich, is to your point, they're not selling. They seem to be just their iOS system in general is a lot more closed, right? So
they won't sell it. And they
Right.
won't. If you'd send me the stuff on the Google thing, that would be interesting. I just want to make sure we've covered all the waterfronts on ways.
Of course.
Data.
Absolutely. Right.
I would
I will
tell you,
also send you this
looking at some other folks that crowdsource data, they do go down and I can actually pull up the address and the email for people in their homes that these crowdsource data has come up with.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because they've done it on their own and then collected with a survey to collect that information?
I didn't try and figure it out. As soon as they did that, I didn't want to deal with them.
Because that is one thing just to let you guys know. So obviously what Alex is getting at is proprietary information. We take that very seriously. We did that is why we only provide the longitude and latitude to a certain level to be able to bin. But with the BEAD program and the NTIA requirements have in it that you have to provide that information, name, email, subscription level. states are having a hard time being able to get that information. So what they're doing is they're taking a speed test custom, kind of like our product, and they're pairing that with a survey 123 done through Esri ArcGIS. And they then have this where you can take a speed test, and it also launches a survey at the same time, and it asks for that information. So then you can collect that information along with the speed test.
Sure, that's probably what they do. That's probably what they do. Well, that's all the questions I've got. Unless you guys have got any more or else.
I think we've got-
Janae? Carl? You okay? Okay, well, thank you very much for your time tonight. You've given us a lot of time, and you've educated me a little bit. When you send me the Google thing, I'll send it to somebody that can understand it.
Yeah, we
Uh,
certainly appreciate your time tonight. It was very generous.
Yeah, well, thank you all for the opportunity. We appreciate it. I'll send the information along to Rich, and we'll still be here. You know, if you have questions, feel free to follow up. And we are working with the state of Connecticut right now. Their broadband office. We are working with the Rhode Island, Massachusetts. Working hard on trying to get New York on board as well. So a lot of the state offices we're working with today. So look forward to continuing the conversation.
Okay. You're going to send the PowerPoint to
Yeah,
Rich?
yeah, you'll send it. Can you send your charts?
I will do that. Yes.
So I can distribute
you.
them? Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Good
Thank
night.
you for your time.
Good night.
Right.
Thank you.
Rich, will you circulate those PowerPoints when you get them?
Yeah, I'll send them to everybody.
Awesome, thank you.
Send to everybody. We're by ourselves again?
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you guys think about this? What do you think the next steps are? We've now seen two drive-by guys that, and we've seen this. I can't quite bring it together in my mind because I don't understand.
This will be a drive-by too, though, right?
Yeah, we gotta do both, I think, is what this is additional, right?
Right,
Yeah, I think that if we can do the advertising for the crowdsourcing, I think that'd be a big help. And I don't know. One of my personal aphorisms is that the ratio of something to nothing is infinite. So I'm willing to take some information.
Did this RFP require a document that Crim put together? You share that?
I
with
did
these
not, I
guys?
did not show that to him. I just said, give me your sales pitch.
Okay,
And
I mean,
they've
But,
provided the detailed data available in each kind of test. You only saw a little bit of the data
Yes,
that
I-
they used that was being mapped. But they provided, and Karim, I don't know whether you've looked at the list of data that they provided or not.
yeah, no, I think it's in terms of the data, it's perfect. The challenge is when you ask the question, how many samples you have, and you see you're talking about like 200, and despite that they have the right range when they zoom in, I mean, it's really, really light on what it covers, at least for New Canaan. That's my concern, right? So that's mean we definitely need a test where we have to drive on the road, right? That's a non-starter. So the question is like, maybe you can compare the prices and the cost of them versus the
Yeah,
standard type of test.
I think we need to do that. I think, because I think we're going to be doing a drive-by test, and the drive-by, if we do it with these guys, we're going to be doing it, right? I mean, maybe we get some interns from high school or something that drive the car.
So I mean, you could
Yeah,
do this entire town, in a single day. At different times of the day as well. So I mean, if we had an effort to say, do you want to be part of this? We do that WIN program.
Right.
Or whatever with the different phones. And people can actively participate in it.
When I talk to Alex about doing that, what they do is they do lease you, I think a 3-month lease is what they lease the equipment for. I think there's more equipment than just the phones. And what they did, at least for, I think, Vermont, was they were able to get the cellular providers to provide the phones for them for what they wanted tested. So what they would be interested in understanding. And so, and for some reason, they thought the phone cost was a big deal on 3 phones or something. That surprised me that was
Wow,
That was,
that's a barrier.
yeah, that's a
Vermont.
barrier. That didn't seem right.
Well, still doesn't work on Forest Road 83.
Yeah, but I think the drive test, although we don't really know because we didn't get enough data, I think the drive test that we are talking about for PureCon or for VCOM, I think it's on the order of, I don't know, 4,000 to 8,000 data points in the town. Karim, you could certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's a test every 2 seconds at 35 miles an hour.
Yeah, it should be even more. So we should talk to them to see what's the frequency of the record that they are capturing. I mean, we need to have a quick discussion of what's. So I think both of them are delivering all the data that we need for sure. I'm pretty sure. It's more the question of at least Ookla does the fine granularity. That's something which is quite interesting that we know. I don't know with the other professional because I didn't have this information described in the documentation. So no matter what, we need to know what is your grid and how frequently do you get a measurement, right?
Yeah. I think we need to do more work to understand Ookla a little bit better. And then to compare Ookla to the other two on a price basis and what's being delivered.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think also one of the challenges that one with where we define the road and we ensure that the engineer are going to do that and drive the road. It might be we have more certainty of the result that we're going to get. I'm not sure with Ookla how can we ensure that we have a good quality.
But I think
I'm not saying we don't. I'm not sure that.
With Ookla, I think it's just on us. I think we define where.
Yeah, that's right. So the question is, I'm not in the challenge is that there's another added layer of complexity, is that who is going to ensure that the measurement is done properly over the 3 months of the lease period, right?
Can you spot check it against the speed test gear?
Sure, we can do that. But I mean, once we have used the 3 months, we might have to do another test because let's say it was not done properly. I can definitely spot check. That's not a problem. It's just the fact that it add another complexity, which is managing the people who are going to do the drive test. That's it.
Right. Right. That's when Vermont did it, the people in their highway department did it. Right. They assigned a couple.
Yeah, and they were highly motivated. So the question is like, if we go that route, we need to make sure that whoever does it is highly motivated to provide the data.
Right. Yeah. Well, it'll be somebody that either works for the town or is hired by the town to do it.
And I'm sorry, I'm in France, so it might be difficult for me to do it. Otherwise, I would volunteer.
Hey, Kevin, do you have any comments on this relative to what you've seen? Okay.
Rich, were you able to get a contact at Vermont, in the state of Vermont?
No,
Check?
I didn't try.
Should we ask them? I mean, somebody on the contract side, but maybe on the technical side too. Just to
We
see
we
what
can
their real feedback
certainly, that's a good question. We can certainly do that. We'll do that.
But what I like also in Ookla is how they're open, how we can access to the raw data. There's no issue. They're like even telling us, hey, you can do that. You can do this kind of analysis. You can even overlay the topographic map. So I think they're coming from a spirit which is very, very good, right? My only concern, as I said, is like 200 tests over a year. It's not a lot. It might not be relevant at all, right? And the second part is, how do you ensure that? Yeah,
I agree with that point.
Yeah, and it's at random times. Who knows when it was too, right? I mean, some of them are at 3 a.m, some of them are in the afternoon, right? That's all going to be done during.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, but they provide the timestamp, right? So
yeah.
Yeah, I thought, I liked the hoopla data too, and I thought the openness, I like the spirit. My only concern is we are gonna be responsible for the drive test, and drive test is awfully important, so making sure those interns drive at the right speed and collect the data at the right points and I use equipment correctly falls on us as opposed to.
Yeah, we certainly need to understand whether we're capable of doing that, and that certainly is something that's something that it gets provided by the other two guys for sure.
With 120 miles.
And also what you can consider is that, you know, comparing the cost, because I'm sure Ookla is way
Right.
cheaper than the standard engineer.
Different times.
So maybe you can hire people who will ensure that it's done properly. you
Right.
know?
Yeah, no, I understand.
So it sounds like we still need a drive test.
Well, yeah, we always.
Yeah, it's without
we're always gonna
question, it's a
need that.
drive test.
Yeah.
I think what they showed us is that crowdsource stuff, there's not enough data for
There's
us,
not enough
so
data.
it doesn't
Yeah.
do anything for us.
Right, I agree.
Not in its current form, not
Yep.
without more marketing and.
Yeah, I think the future will be there, but we're not there yet for our region, right? If you do that in New York or Norwalk, it's perfect, right? But not for us.
Okay, well, anything else we gotta talk about? So we
We're
gotta,
done with that one.
well, we gotta do something. All right. We gotta do something. So
You're gonna aggregate the data, right? We're gonna take a look at it and, you know, then we've got some questions that we need to go back.
yeah,
You know, I'd be happy to sit with Karim and possibly have a conference call with anybody in Vermont. You
okay.
know, anybody else is welcome to chime in on that call.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just keep adding people until,
Well, I think we still need a technical call with both VCOM and PureCom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I think we need to call on what we're
I
actually.
agree. And if I may interrupt you, it's also a cost analysis, like just back of the envelope. Okay, how much it costs with Ookla, and how much it costs with VCOM, and if we wanted to make Ookla more resilient, right, in the analysis that they're doing, the drive test,
Mhm.
how much we would need to, what buffer do we have, right?
Well, I think we still, Karim, I think we still need to have a discussion with VCOM and PureCom that
Absolutely.
they're delivering what we think we want, right? Not, and the current definition is just a drive test.
Yeah, it's vague. Like the comparison with Ookla is that I could see all the signal noise ratio, all the metric that I'm looking for, right? So they were clearly presented on the side of the map. They had even the location of the cell tower. There is even on the building. That's great. I mean, the information is perfect. They just don't have the data, but the information is exactly what I'm looking for.
Okay.
So what timing are we looking for to obviously to put these together, and as well as testing when there's leaves on the tree?
Well, I think
Trees
we've missed when
versus-
there's leaves on the trees. 'Cause,
Correct.
yeah, once we sign the contract, it's gonna take them two weeks anyways to get going. So I
Correct.
think we're into the spring on the drive test.
Spring, summer?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's the case. Anybody disagree with that?
and it may beginning of June at the earliest.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think what we do is we do what we're discussing here between Karim's, Sven and myself, and getting direct contact with the three companies between now and the next utilities meeting, and we come back with a report to everybody on this is how we compare them.
This is what our notes show.
Functionally and price wise.
So a technical conversation with all three of
All
them,
three. All three.
and a fourth conversation with state of Vermont,
Yeah.
and how they liked it, what they were surprised or pleased or whatever.
Okay, does that make sense to everybody?
I believe it's a good plan. Yeah, I from my side, I think it's a good plan. It's,
You know,
Good plan.
can we get, the data set, that Karim feels that we need? And, and then,
Be
can we get
sure
the
and know
coverage?
them, right?
Yeah, no, exactly.
All
Exactly.
right,
Okay, should we move on?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, the next point, I think is, I asked Mike to give us a little update on what he's thinking about with Eversource.
Okay. It's time to take my glasses off. I can't read. All right, so we've reached out to Eversource a few times in regards to obtaining information. So I told them we're looking for electric outages as far as on the electric side of it. I have the gas side update too. So what we're looking for basically is a heat map to see where the highest frequency of electric outages are occurring in town. And this information, if we can get this from them and review it, it'll allow us to better understand where the outages are coming, what things we can do to mitigate it, set priorities like tree inspections, like removals, if it's possible. Not only counting on them to do their tree trimming, but you know, what does the town own or what do the people own? Maybe circuits, rerouting circuits or backing them up from another direction. Some of these circuits are dead ends. So what something goes down here, 5 miles down the road, no one has power. So that will help us do that as well. And we're also looking and speaking about the possibility of looking at undergrounding lines. In regards to moving the lines underground or removing the poles, there's a ballpark cost that comes into play here. And that's between 2.5 million and 5 million per mile. So if we're not doing this for a resiliency basis and it's just for beautification, that's a lot of money to look at. So we'll take a look and see if undergrounding would make any sense. If not, it would be very cost prohibitive.
Does anybody have the good analysis that actually says that for this area?
Yeah.
Do they?
We're gonna get that from Eversource as
Okay.
well. We'll get
Yeah.
a rough, yeah.
I was actually looking at what, and again, another part of the country, I was at Newport Beach, we did this. And, you know, there, but in California beach, the whole different
The different topography.
$1,200.
Geology.
How much?
Well, I mean, $1,200 per foot,
Per
which
foot?
is about $6,000. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not, it's consistent with where,
Where
with what
this-
you- with what
this
you're talking
range is,
about.
Yeah.
with maybe a
Even-
California
even-
cost
Even
premium.
if the number's half the number you mentioned,
Yeah.
it's too expensive.
No, but I think, but the, just understanding what it is, knowing what the choices are,
Right.
it's just, these are the facts. Like, if people are asking, or we see that it could occur, it's like, all right, it costs this much. Once you get the reliability data, it's like, is it worth it? It's a big hurdle to make, but let's just get the data, understand the choices,
Right.
present it to the community, you know, as it comes up. And that's what we're supposed to do.
Right, exactly.
Mhm.
The other thing to keep in
And
mind
if
when you
if I
do
may say,
underground-
one thing that would
Go ahead.
one thing that would be interesting and easy to do is that, let's say when you have your heat map, I can quickly compute, let's say, all the critical area. Let's say we want to put underground, what would be the cost of it? Because having this information on the map, then it's easy to highlight the critical zone and compute the distance that we have to cover this critical zone and get you a price tag.
Do you, in the request, in the outreach, do you feel like you will get some information?
Yeah, I'll get something.
Okay.
I'm not sure how detailed it will be. I would like it to be, you know, streets or whatnot, so we will see what we eventually get for that. Now, keep in mind too,
I
that
see.
undergrounding, keep in mind that undergrounding is great as far as for beautification, or if you can stop outages and prevent them. But keep in mind that fixing a situation or a fault or something underground is 10 times more difficult to do when it's underground. And there's limited crews that do the underground circuits. So we're having a 2-year upgrade in town. There's a 2-year upgrade going on in town. I know you see the one by Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
That's been going on forever. And that's just to upgrade it. And Kevin's laughing because he's been living through it as well. I mean, that's how long it takes to upgrade an existing system. And that's not a large underground system. Never mind when we have a situation where there's major power outages and you have to find the fault. An underground circuit is twice as difficult, and the crews are specialized. It's not like an overhead wires crew that you drive the circuit. I could drive the circuits, look at them and find, okay, we have a fault here, we have a fault here. This one, you know, popped out. So there's some tree branch or something that made that fault out. So you can't find that when they're underground. So as nice as it would be, if it would prevent obviously outages, that's great. But is it going to make it worse?
Well, I think that's what we're hunting for.
Right. And I think with
That balance.
and the data that we find, the information that we find, the framework that's developed, it's just, well, that's as of now.
Right.
And it's the framework that, 10 years they'll look at it again and it's like, all right, well, here was the way that this commission looked at it. These are the data points, these are the decisions. That'll be a starting point for when the community feels differently or when something's different.
Right.
So even if it seems like maybe we kind of already feel like we know the answer,
Right.
this is appropriate
Right.
base work.
I
to do.
don't buy that I know the answer.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
know,
that's true. I just sort of think-
I just don't, everybody always says it's $5 million a mile, therefore it's way too expensive. And that may be absolutely true, but I have no clue what Eversource is spending on cutting my trees down every summer when they go by. And what they climb the
How it
pole on the
how it
corner.
ultimately comes back to the
The
community.
pole on the corner of my house is climbed by a guy once a week.
Really?
Yeah, it's I live right on the main street,
Right.
and the pole's right there and there's a transformer up on it. There's always something that is there. Every time there's a storm, they're there for sure. They're
It must be
absolutely up there.
one of the major
Absolutely up there.
feeders into there or something like
I'm
that down
sure,
there.
I'm sure whatever your heat map shows, it's gonna be the corner of my property. It's gonna be.
Gotta remember, the substation's right up the hill there.
Yeah. no,
So
you're
you
right.
have to keep that in mind as well.
Well, that's a great report.
Yeah, so that's where we're standing
What
with
about
that.
gas?
As far as gas goes, I met with Tiger Man the other day just to make sure that we weren't duplicating efforts
Mhm.
and whatnot. And he and I both reached out to Eversource Gas, and they're willing to come and give us an update at one of our meetings in December or January
Terrific.
to go over where they've been, what's happening, what's not happening anymore, what the state has shut down, what the penetration is in town, how many services have gone, how many meters and things of that
Mhm.
sort, to see how effective that was.
I think that would be great. What do you guys think? See if we can do that in December.
And the challenge we have with Eversource
January.
is that,
What do you want to do in December?
Nothing.
okay, January, February. The challenge we have with the electric folks is the town liaison, which helped a lot of folks, moved over to transmission. So Tracy Alston moved over to the transmission department. And so they have someone new. And then I'm also dealing with a new area manager. So I was trying to.
So you get to train 2 new guys?
Yeah, we get to train them. So we'll figure that out, but we'll try to get the electric folks to come in as well, just
Okay,
to
terrific.
get that out there. I just don't think it'd be effective right now
Mhm.
due to the fact that they're new.
Yeah. Okay, any questions for Mike?
Thank you.
Mike, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bernie, you wanna chat for a minute about, we've got your guy coming in on
They were
the.
very nice and flexible. We moved
15th
the
of
November
November.
meeting and he's
Yeah.
fully-
No, maybe, sorry, just one question about the electricity. Did you look at about the solar or having batteries that would be solarly, charged with a solar?
From the utility standpoint,
Yeah, from the utility standpoint, because we have a lot of space and could be potentially using this type of.
I have not looked into that. It's something we can look at. I know quite a bit about that as well. I mean, yes, we have open space that we can put solar panels, but do we want open space filled with solar panels? And then the battery technology, there's so much new technology out there. Some of them have proven, some of them aren't proven. Right now, the fail rate on some batteries is 4 out of 10. So I think the technology has to develop a little bit further, even though they're putting it everywhere, number one. Number two is if you don't put enough batteries, the value of whatever you're generating out of those batteries has a lifetime of 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, depending on how many batteries you stage. So it's something.
Sure, but I wanted, it's not necessarily in the uptake or in the view of installing solar technology. It's in the idea of informing, the population that, the citizen that we have looked at that, right? So the same way we would look at the heat map on the deficiency of the electrical system, I think we owe the the citizen, or I mean, as a utility commission, it would be good to say, we looked at that. This is the level of maturity of the technology. We're not using it because of that, right?
That's definitely doable. That's something that I could definitely look into as far as all the different technologies. You've got the battery, you've got the solar, you've got cogen, you've got all sorts of new things coming up in regards to that. You have the hydrogen hubs, which were just announced by the
Mhm.
Department of Energy. One of them closest is in Appalachia, so
Yep.
it's West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Kentucky, I believe, on that one hub. And then there's 6 other hubs that were chosen throughout the United States for, I think they all not getting the same amount, but it was $7 billion to do hydrogen.
Yeah.
So there's technologies out there that do that now as well. So I agree, if that's what one of the tasks we think as a utility commission we should present in the future, that's definitely doable.
Where are we on the cogen thing? Are we still doing cogen here? Kevin, are
I
we
don't know
doing
anything about
cogen?
it.
They're scheduled to get one? Okay, I thought I was going to the junior high. Was that a separate plan? Oh, it's up and operating? Okay, good.
You've got, so we're talking about utility scale storage.
Well, I think,
Is
I
that
think,
what they're
well, I
talking-
think the question is like, to what end? I mean, so the use of that and to what end as it complements the existing power supply. So I think you sort of have to ask, you have to sort of ask, like, in terms of these facilities to do what, to what end?
Exactly.
I mean, I think that's the question in terms of obviously power supply coming through our distribution company and the sources and choices that you currently have. What does a community scale of anything, how does it complement and to what end? That's just sort of like, okay. and
Cost
then-
benefit.
Cost benefit, and
Yeah,
like, and then how it's used
that's
and
a
why
great
it's
answer.
used.
That's a great
So
answer.
it's just,
That's a
just
great
framing,
question.
framing,
Yeah.
it's like, okay,
Yeah.
because there are communities who say like, look, we want to have something, here, and it's gonna be renewable. Okay. The choices, and it's something that's, that they control, is here, they own, and there are benefits to that. Then it's just a matter of like, well, what's the benefit ultimately relative to the power supply that's coming in already?
Right.
So it's just framing it in that way, given the circumstances of Eversource, the power supply opportunities that are out there, which we can frame. Because there are reasons when communities do that and the choices that they make it and why they do it. It's cost, it's choice of how much renewables you want. And it's just a matter of whether this community wants to go that route for those benefits. It's just like undergrounding. It's a cost.
Okay.
It's a value that you want and the cost to it.
I was just a little stunned by utility scale storage. Okay.
Yeah, me too. Especially given where it's at right now. But if there's a way to add resiliency to the town or to not count on transmission, or maybe not as much count on some of the critical infrastructure, when the distribution system goes down or when a tree falls on one of the main feeds or things of that sort, or like the underground circuit went down from the substation that came into town, that was going to take a while to fix. If there's a way to mitigate that and it's cost effective or whatever, we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, I think
I mean, the technologies are huge out there.
On the solar side of things, if during the day it's sunny, you're creating energy and it can go into the town that we don't have to buy from Eversource, fine. If we don't need that much, don't you just put it onto the grid? Why is the talk of batteries? Don't you, when it's there, we either use it or sell it to them, right?
Batteries just allow you to utilize it in areas where it's
Where you need
Where
it,
you
when
need
you
it
need
more.
it quickly,
So-
peak hours or
so
things.
7, 8 o'clock.
Well, wait, you turn it on peak hour.
I know, but it's more the value of the marginal energy is more valuable at 7, 8 o'clock when the sun's just when the sun went down, but when people have come home and turned on everything.
Gotcha.
the
I
value-
understand this pricing during the day.
Yeah, so the value is just better. So if you can take the energy that you have at, 4 or 5 o'clock and store it and use it at 7 o'clock.
Gotcha.
That's-
Okay,
it's just
so
va-
it's
it's
the
just
time of
value.
day
It's just
value of it.
valuable.
But just keep in mind, even in Texas, the wind's not always blowing, the sun's not always shining, and the electric needs are still there, and the prices have gone. I've seen them at $5,000 to $10,000 at certain touch points during the day, and there's not enough power there. And
Mhm.
so when you think about that on the East Coast as well, I mean, unless it's a resiliency or something that would help the town in a major way, or cogen saving money using the same fuel and adding and taking the thermal off it. So you're increasing efficiency to somewhere between
Right.
75 and 95%, depending on how you sized it for the electric to the thermal.
And the town has done a lot of work on that and done a lot of solar and the cogens are on their
Mhm.
way in the big spots, you know, and so I think it's something we should be looking at. but
That's
all.
fun stuff for me.
Yeah. You know, Texas in the news this week, Texas gave the accolades to battery backup
Oh.
for missing, you know, not having to take the system down and when they ran into problems in the summer this year. Because of
Space
their
them
big
far
batteries.
apart,
And
space them far apart.
And there happens to be a in the news deal in Long Island where they want to build a big battery place. And the residents are saying, once that starts on fire, you can't put it out. It goes on for 5 or 6 days or whatever. So anyways, there's no doubt that there's communities getting involved in it at this point.
Mhm.
Okay. Bernie,
Not much to report, except, as I said, the agrarian guy was accommodative. He's going to be here the 15th. Tiger Man and I are going to chat with him before he gets
Good.
here. I think what we're anticipating, he's going to have, 5 or 10 minutes on a general spiel of what they're doing. It would be great if folks would offer questions or specific things that.
Think about what.
yeah, send some questions to Bernie. So
Yes,
he's got
please
them
do. So,
when he sits down with them.
You and I have talked, Rich, and I have
Yep.
some thoughts. Tiger's got some things. And so we'll pepper him with questions along that line. So please,
Got a few for you.
When's that?
next meeting, which is the 15th of
15th of
November,
November.
Okay.
here.
In the other
this-
room.
Oh, the other room. Is that right?
I don't remember now
I don't
which
think it'll
room it
matter.
goes in. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll figure it
it's
out. We usually get it wrong, but we'll figure it out. Okay,
small
anybody
building.
else got anything they want to bring up in any of the commissioners? Janae? You okay? Karim, you okay?
Yes,
Good.
I'm okay. Thank
Anybody
you.
want to offer a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn. Bob?
Got 2 eyes up there too.